Welcome to Building Your Legacy, Southern Arizona Estate Planning with Allison Manning.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of Building Your Legacy in Southern Arizona with attorney Allison Manning. I am your host, Mike Leon. You think a will is all you need? I'm here to tell you that you don't. Actually, Allison is here to tell you that you don't. From navigating Arizona's probate and the Arizona long-term care system, aka ALTCS, to protecting your kids with the right trust, Allison has been doing this for years, and she's going to break down the legal tools you actually need to find that true peace of mind for you and your family. Stop worrying about the what ifs and start building a plan that works. Allison, it's good to see you, and I love talking about this topic because a lot of people put off long-term care planning. They think they're going to live for forever. I'm here to tell you that you don't. But let me ask you at a high level, what happens to my assets? Let's say I lived in the state of Arizona. If I do die without a said will or any type of estate planning?
Mike, thanks for having me. Arizona has designed a will for you. So if you don't do your own planning, the state of Arizona, through their statutes, has created your will. They say who gets your assets and who's in charge of the assets. And most likely you'll end up in the probate process in order to pass those assets along. Most of the time, people don't want the state to decide who gets their assets and who's in charge of their assets. They want some say in that. And so it's not the best designed plan, as we all know, when the state's involved in saying where things go. But the default is dying intestate, which is falling into what the statutes say where your assets go.
Yeah, you definitely don't want the courts to be in charge of that. So let's talk about, I mentioned some of the tools in the introduction here, but for the audience that's uninitiated to them or haven't started planning, what is the difference between a will and a trust, and who actually needs either or?
Great question. As far as the difference in the two, a will is an instruction sheet to the judge telling the judge where your assets are going to go and who's in charge of them. A will is designed to send your family through the probate process or through the court system in order to get those assets that are titled in your name changed from your name to your beneficiary's name. A trust, on the other hand, is a private agreement. It's a private agreement between yourself as the trustor, the one who creates it and puts your assets into it, and yourself as the trustee. Typically, it's yourself as the trustee, and the trustee is the one who manages it, both for the benefit of the beneficiaries. A trust is designed to stay out of the court system and to keep your information and your assets private so that third parties, nosy neighbors, anybody else doesn't get to know information about the trust unless they're a part of the trust agreement.
Who doesn't love a good nosy neighbor, right, Allison? So, but let me ask you, because another assumption, you can correct me if I'm wrong, people think will, trust, it's for when I'm dead. But there are scenarios for using these tools when you're alive. In that instance, what are some of the legal documents that are kind of absolutely essential to kind of manage finances, healthcare, if you are alive, but you're incapacitated?
If you're alive, sometimes that's even more important than when you're dead. We need to make sure we keep lights on at your house. We need bills paid. We need medical decisions made. When you're alive, you need, at a minimum, I would say, your financial power of attorney and your healthcare powers of attorney. In Arizona, we need a healthcare power of attorney, mental health. We recommend a living will, and also HIPAA authorization that allows your agents to get that protected medical information. A trust is great when you're alive as well, because it allows for your agents to step in. Those successor trustees that you designate can step in upon illness or incapacity and can manage your assets that are owned by the trust. So a trust also works for you when you're alive, where in comparison, a will only works when you're dead. It's the document that it gives instructions of where your asset goes when you're deceased. So I'd say at a minimum, we want to look at those financial powers of attorneys, looking at those, the healthcare documents, and if possible, if it's the right tool for you, a trust works great when you're alive.
Allison, let me ask you, wills, trusts, all these different decisions, whether you're dead or alive, like the old song used to say, right? Wanted, dead or alive. What are some of the biggest, though, estate planning mistakes you've seen people make? I'm assuming number one is they didn't make one.
Right. A lot of people think I have time. I have time to make decisions, and so I'll get to it eventually. I'll handle this tomorrow. Unfortunately, for many people, tomorrow doesn't come and they don't have the ability to make the decision. Many people think, oh, my kids can figure it out. They don't take into account that kids will be dealing with emotions, that they may have some conflicts with their siblings or with other family members. And so they don't take that into consideration. Additionally, people just think, oh, I don't have any assets to worry about. I just have my house and a bank account. And they don't realize that that's still going to land them in the probate process in order to transfer assets.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, I know my family went through some of that with different loved ones passing away. And it funnels into the follow-up, which is really, let's say you make a plan or you have this will, you have the trust. How often should someone update these plans? And what are some things that trigger those updates?
It's a really good point. And a lot of times people think it's a one and done. They draft their documents, they put them aside, and they never look at them again. I encourage clients to review their plan with me at least every 2 to 3 years, just as a general course of reviewing the plan. So that way we know that the decisions that were made are still the decisions that you want to have happen. But I also tell my clients to reach out to me if there's significant events in their life. I refer to them as the Ds. If there's a divorce, a death, a diagnosis, or a decline in health, or other significant change that may not be as a downfall or something. It may be something like a birth of a child, or moving to a new house, or acquiring new assets, opening new accounts. Those are times when your trust needs to be reviewed, and that people should take a look at their estate and make sure their plan is still going to work for them at the time when they need them to work.
I love that. 4Ds, a good takeaway for folks out there. So Allison, let me ask you though, can estate planning, can it really protect some of these assets from some of the ancillary things like nursing homes, long-term care costs? Like, how does that work?
A proper estate plan can help protect against the nursing home cost. In Arizona, we have the ALTCS system, Arizona Long-Term Care System. This is not necessarily a plan to pay for long-term care. It's a default that people fall into, and lack of planning for the need of long-term care doesn't mean you're not going to need long-term care planning. If you do some planning and proper planning, you can minimize the loss in your estate and make sure that there's still money there to take care of things that ALTCS doesn't pay for. You can make sure that there's money there to pay for funeral costs, that there's money there to pay for and pass down to your family members, but to not put the burden on your family members. So a proper plan will avoid that complete loss of estate money and that spend down that has to happen at the end of your life in order for the Medicaid program to kick in and pay for your care.
Allison, you mentioned burden there with family, and you mentioned it before about kids with the emotions of someone, a loved one passing away. In that vein, how can parents kind of make sure their kids are protected if something were to happen to them?
You know, it's really important that parents do take that into consideration, because many children, one, they just don't know what to do or where to begin. So they don't have a resource to reach out to. I encourage my clients to have their children have my contact information so that they know how to, what to do, who to call, where to start. But to make sure that there's a plan in place and that they talk with their kids about it, to say, look, here's the estate planning binder that I have here. I put a trust in place. This is what a trust is. And we have these financial documents, but also we have put this plan in place. So if there is a need for long-term care, if we start private paying for caregivers, that there may be some ways that we need to move the money around in order to protect, so that the kids don't have to come out of pocket to pay for caregivers. And so that's really important. But I also think besides the documents, it's the conversations that you have with the family members, and I encourage my clients and encouraging them to talk to their children, and in fact, have the children be a part of the process if it's appropriate for them. So that way there's not that surprise, and that they know what to expect, because we all know that time will come, that there's going to be a time of death. We hope there's not illness along with it, but we see that there's an increasing number of people who need long-term care before they pass away, with people living longer and needing that care and those caregivers. It does become a burden on children And children, for the most part, want to help. They just don't know what to do. And most children don't have the resources to come out of pocket to pay for their parents' care.
You know, you mentioned mistakes before. We talked about mistakes before that people make. Can you kind of demystify some myths that you've heard about estate plannings? What are some that you hear that are just plain wrong?
Some myths that people have come into my office and they'll talk to me about, they'll say, I don't have enough money to have an estate plan, so it doesn't really matter. Or I don't have a house, or I don't have a certain dollar amount, so I don't really need to worry about estate planning. I'll tell you a quick story about one of my clients who she had about $80,000 and she had a house, but she had two siblings who both were on government assistance. And if they received this inheritance, they would have lost their government benefits. And so while she didn't have a large estate by many people's accounts, she had enough that when she was leaving her assets to her siblings, had they inherited it outright without any kind of protection, they would have lost their government benefits. So that myth is one of those that I like to dispel quickly, that it's not always about the dollar amount. It's about looking at the whole totality of the circumstance. It's looking at where are the assets going? What's the situation? Are they going to minor children? We don't want minor children to inherit money. So let's leave it to them in a protected manner. And at a certain age, they can receive the money. So that's something that a lot of times people think, I just don't have enough, or I'm not as concerned. I'll wait and deal with this later if I have enough money.
Yeah, it's a great story. And it's a reason why people should reach out to you. So before we kind of wrap here, let's leave our one important question for our listeners here, which is, at what point in their life, Allison, according to Allison Manning, should someone right now start their estate planning?
I encourage clients actually to start as soon as they turn 18. They need a financial power of attorney and healthcare documents. I encourage clients to review their plans when they get married, when they have children. So there's significant events in their life. You definitely want to make sure you have a plan in place before you die. So at least, 2 to 3 weeks before you die. But do you really want to be hanging out with me doing your estate plan at those final days of your life? So it's never too early to get started with the conversation and putting some appropriate documents in place. And it can be too late. So I usually encourage people to get them done at those significant times in their life, so that way they can make sure that their plan is going to work for them when they need to.
It's never too early, but it can be too late. That's great advice. Allison, thank you so much for the time, the insights. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
And thank you to everyone out there for listening to this installment of Building Your Legacy in Southern Arizona. If you're ready to take that next step, you're ready to start that estate planning, visit AllisonManningLaw.com to learn how a custom estate plan can help protect your family's future and to connect with Allison and her team. One more favor before you go: hit like, hit subscribe, leave a review, comment, share the episode with somebody in Arizona who hasn't started their estate planning. As always, I'm Mike Leon. See everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.